But if it's like relevant, I will definitely answer them now. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just gonna go ahead and get the PowerPoint up. But yeah, like I was saying, it's cold here. How cold is it? It's 45 degrees Fahrenheit, 7 degrees Celsius. So it's kind of chilly out. It's not that bad though, because it's still sunny. It's just a little chilly. So not that bad. Uh, I don't know if you guys have seen snow, like the people that are watching. If you guys have seen snow, or if it's going to be your first experience in snow. Very exciting. I remember, I mean, I grew up in Nepal, so I I did grow up in a part of town or like in a part of the country where it did snow when I was younger. So it wasn't my first time experiencing snow, but I grew up in the city, and so because we moved to the city, it didn't snow in the city. So after I came to Minnesota, it was like snow. It was a very interesting first year, which I really enjoyed. Me and my friends went. So when you guys are here in the spring, you'll be able to go to some free events, like snow tubing. We will have enough snow for those this year, but basically what that is it'll be like in Mount Cato, and then you just get to fly down a hill like full of snow with like a little tube. They'll give you the tube of salt. You can do that as well. It's always fun. What did you do about a couple of weeks ago? And the baby that my mom taking him to taking things. So I found super novel. So how to prepare yourself and feel yourself and it's not so I'm feeling so So the financial consulting computing, so they can find today we can see what all the like things for the community reflect on how we can reword something. Think about potential reasons for why we think about the reframe these conversations. Hopefully, the community is so it's the next time, even though we can show open the community to talk about some important terms and specific refusal and the need to see if we can the role of the result of one for the of using the use of policies for living in the I have a personal for all the technical. So the first thing is whenever you feel because the letters in that one it's often so there's two factors that you come to you and two factors you go to and they can and here's an insight because it's good using person and hopefully you're up to the conversation for the day and just being the room for an second. A non-immigrant visa on is a temporary visa that's given for a very specific purpose and for a very specific amount of time. So when you're thinking about your student visa, right, your F-1 visa, that falls under the non-immigrant visa because again, you're saying going to be you want to come to the U.S. study, you want to study a specific program for a specific amount of time, so your undergrad or your bachelor's or your master's, and that's it, right? Sometimes, of course, with your study, you also get some X amount of time to work in the U.S., but that's a permit, and then after that permit's over, technically you're supposed to leave because you serve the purpose of your visa, which is your F-1 visa. The reason why I like to bring these two distinctions is because it helps you kind of distinguish or really think about your answers for your interview. Because again, like I said, the non-immigrant visa or F-1 visa is for a specific purpose. It's to say, oh yeah, I'm interested in going to the U.S. for it's like a tourist visa. You come here, you look around, and then you go back. This distinction is going to be important because this can help you frame your answers. Because you're going for a non-immigrant visa and it's a temporary visa, when you're going for your visa appointment and answering, that's when you should be indicated in your answers is, hey, I'm just going to study, and that's it, and then I'm just going to come to my home country and do whatever I want to do. Or like if you have, it's always good to have a plan, so you can be like, I'm not just saying like whatever, but you can be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to the U.S. to study, I'm going to finish my program, and then I'm going to come back to my home country to either, seasonal family business, you bring that up. But the important thing is you need to show to the visa officer and you have to convince the visa officer that that's the only reason why that will be returned. Now that the important terms are out of the way, we can quickly talk about there's two types of refusals that we commonly see with our students. Um, these are the most common. So the first one is the 214B of the Immigration and National Act. So with this type of refusal, it basically means that you are not able to convince the visa officer that you're just going to be here for school and that you want to immigrate to the U.S. and you want to stay in the U.S. Again, that's not the purpose of the non-immigrant visa. If you're reclusive, it just means that you were not able to convince your visa officer that return to your home country. Sometimes with this also, like there can be other factors. It isn't necessarily always like your interview answers that you might have given that they weren't convinced with. sometimes there might be something in your DS-160 when you filled it out. If you have um, siblings in the US that have already completed their program and they're staying here on an H-1B, they might look at it and say, oh, well, this person's siblings are already in the US on an H-1B and they're staying there, so the student also might stay in the US. Um, so the framework that we look at is guilty until proven innocent, which is usually the opposite of how we look at things, right? But you weren't able to prove your non-immigrant intent to the visa officer. The other type of refusal that we do see is the 221B of the Immigration and National Act. It's usually for graduate students, or students in a master's program. It doesn't always have to be, but it just means that your visa is an administrative processing, which means the applicant did not fully complete the visa application and or provide all the required supporting documents. This one you get like a physical letter stating, hey, you need to submit X, Y, and Z documents for us to process your visa. So with this, there's usually going to be an official letter that you receive stating what they want you to submit. So like it says on the screen, it requires the applicant to submit requested documentation for further processing. But these are generally the two most common refusals that we see. And then kind of moving forward, like I said, the role of the visa officer, they're essentially acting the Homeland Security. So they're making sure that's also why they can be quite strict, is because they have the role of making sure that they're not bringing people into the country that actually don't want an education, but they just want to come here and then overstay their visa or not even go to school. The role of the visa officer is to assume that you have the intent to stay in the U.S. unless you prove otherwise. And so they are always going into the visa interviews with the idea or with the assumption that you are going to stay in the U.S. unless you specify otherwise. So when they're trained to look for red flags about your intentions in the U.S., so if you don't have sufficient finances to pay for the cost of your program, they're going to say, you can't afford to pay for your education, so you're most likely probably going to just work off campus or overstay. Is when you're answering, you don't specify that you're going to return to your home country, that shows some intent that you want to stay in the U.S. after your program. If you are not able to answer clearly and concisely why you chose the program that you chose and why you chose the university that you chose, that goes to show to them that you're not really serious about your education and you don't really care. So it's always really important to sit with yourself and think about why you chose Minnesota State University. There's always one thing that might have stuck out to you about our university, and that's why you're applying to us. You can't essentially go into the interview and say, well, they were the easiest ones to apply to, and they gave me my kind of student, so that's why I'm going there. That means you don't take your education seriously and you don't really care as long as you have your I-20. So really think about what attracted you to our university. Was it the program? If you're in nursing, we have a simulation lab where our nursing majors are able to practice. It's a very cool lab. If any of you guys are going to be in nursing, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's such a cool lab. I used to work as a tour guide for the admissions office, and that was one of my favorite places to show during tours. And everybody would be really impressed. So if you're in a nursing program, that'll be something that's really interesting to mention. Be like, hey, yeah, the simulation lab's really cool. If you're in dental hygiene, we have an actual dental clinic on campus for our students to practice. And I usually go there to get my cleanings done. Very cool. That's a lot of hands-on experience that you're getting and you're supposed to get as a dental hygiene program major, but to know that it's already on campus is something that you can definitely talk about. So really think about what attracted you to our university, a thing or two. If you have friends here that go here, sometimes it's hard to go abroad by yourself. And you have friends here that are going to help you kind of get settled in and are able to provide you with the guidance that you need to get through the new educational system. So you need to come up with or think about at least two or three reasons as to why the university is the one for you. If you're not giving them clear indications of your intention to return home, that's a big red flag. Visa officers, and they will most likely deny your visa. You don't have any clear plans for your future career. If you're not able to answer the question, well, what will you do with your degree? What's the plan after? That's also a big red flag. Fraudulent documents. I would think that our admissions process is pretty stringent and strict with that. That's why we're so nitpicky with the financial documents and the sponsor letters and everything that you guys submit. Is we can tell when it's fraudulent. We can tell when it's not. Like when it's fake, we can tell. And so that's also why our process is pretty strict and we have so many requirements, is because we want to make sure that you're able to A, pay for your education, and B, you are like submitting documents that again you'll have to take to these officers for your interview. If you I'm not 100% sure what kind of background check they do and what they look for when they do background checks, but if you're relying on your DS-160, um, when you fill out your DS-160, make sure you're answering everything truthfully and honestly. Don't skip out on anything. And then if you're relying on the visa interview as well, especially if they have access to that information on the back end and you're lying, they're really going to see that as a flag and also deny your visa. So at the end of the day, just to kind of summarize what I'm trying to say here is the visa officers that you need for your visa interview are trained to assume that you're going to stay in the U.S. until you prove otherwise. And henceforth, you need to practice your answers in a way where they're not oversharing, they're not giving a long 5-minute answer, and you're also being very concise and also including the fact that you're going to return home. So we'll look at some questions. We'll look at some answers as well that we've prepared for you guys. And then there's some other questions, additional questions that I have added into the slides for you that are, I think, very useful. I'll give you some advice on how to prepare and how I went for my visa interview. So let's quickly over. So if you've already been denied your visa, the first thing you're going to want to do is reflect on your interview, right? So think about the questions that they ask. Think about what answers you gave. So write it all down. Okay, did they ask, I want to study in the U.S.? Jot that down. What answers did you give? And also think about why do you think you were refused? Sometimes this is very arbitrary. Sometimes you just don't know why. Sometimes you think you've done your best and they still denied your visa, and that's frustrating. And sometimes that can happen. But sometimes there are reasons why a visa might be denied. I know we have some, is it not as loud as it should be? Hold on.
Let me know if this is better. Is this better? I hope so. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if it's better? So I know. Or like raise your hand if it sounds better so that I know that it sounds better. Okay, perfect. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. All right. So again, just to reiterate, the first thing you're going to, again, I'm sorry if your visa was denied. It's not a fun experience. I've been through that process myself, and so I understand that it's a big day. Fortunately for me, I got my visa my first try. I mean, right now I'm a full-time staff. I do get that question a lot when I share my experiences. Well, are you still a student? I am not a student. I am a full-time staff at the Carney International Center, but I have been through the visa process like most of you guys have, or most of you guys will be. And so I understand how scary and nerve-wracking this experience can potentially be. So if you have already been denied, I'm sorry. And so now is a good time to really reflect on the questions that you were asked. So write everything down, write your answers, think about what happened, and then also really sit down and think about why you think you were refused. Sometimes it's arbitrary, sometimes, again, like I was saying, you just don't know, you feel like you did your best and you still got denied. So there's some things on the back end that might be happening. But the one thing that you can do to hopefully take you to success is preparing for that visa interview. So just to, I'm just checking the time. So here's some strategies for your next visa that you can utilize. You must be able to present evidence of a significant change in your circumstance since your last visa application. A lot of students ask, well, if I get a different sponsor letter, is that going to work? Not always. I mean, you could try it, but it's not really a significant change. Um, so definitely think about that as well. If you are, think about your application and your visa appointment, and then recognize the highlights and the hurdles that you have personally to study in the US. So, for example, if you're a strong academic student but have limited finances, that could potentially be a red flag for the visa officer, and they might deny you because you can't afford the education in the US. So, if you have an experience, personal experience like that, you have to think about how are you going to overcome your financial limitations. So you're going to have to answer the question. You're going to have to be able to answer the question, well, I know that, my sponsor letter says this amount of money, but to overcome it, I have gotten a scholarship for Minnesota State University Mankato, and that will really help me with getting my education. Um, let's say for a different example, let's say you are a well-funded student but are admitted to the intensive English program. How will you communicate your intentions to the visa officer that, you're interested in the intensive English program and that's why you're coming here? So you're going to have to, even English can be a barrier sometimes, but you're going to have to practice your answers in a way that you're able to really put your answer across. So for example, we've given two concrete examples for you guys to look at. I'm studying a bachelor's in biomedical sciences so I can pursue my master's and eventually work for a medical research lab in my home country to develop advanced medical technology. This answer is short, it's concise, it's to the point, and most importantly, it talks about I will return to my home country. It shows intent that you are going to return back home. That's very important again. So sometimes the visa officer might not even ask, well, are you going to come back home? They usually don't. And because of that reason, whenever you're answering questions, you need to kind of put that into your answers. Like this example right here is, I'm going to come back to my home country and develop advanced medical technology. You've kind of shared what you're studying, and then what you want to do after you're studying, after you finish your studies, and also what your future career goals are. The second example that we provided is I am studying at Minnesota State University Mankato because it is a strong biomedical program with undergraduate research opportunities and small class sizes, so I can get hands-on experience with professors and focus on research with a faculty member. I was also awarded a scholarship, which helps make this an affordable program. This example is very specific and very to the point and very much focused on biomedical program. If you're able to answer this question, like if you're able to use this kind of answer, it's perfect because it shows that you are serious about your education. It shows that you've done your research on the university and what's provided or what's available for our students at our university. You've kind of mentioned that what you want to do with your degree, and that also you received a scholarship, which will help to make this an affordable program. It can be harder to come up with an answer this concise and this specific, but use this as a guideline as to how you could potentially answer your question. If you have, like I mentioned earlier, if you have friends in the US that go to our university, if you have friends at Minnesota State University Mankato, you can also utilize that as part of your answer because, like I was saying earlier, going abroad is a very and big decision. You're going to be by yourself and you have to kind of navigate this new country by yourself in a language that's maybe not your first language. And so when you're able to, if you're able to even say, like, yeah, I have friends there and they'll be able to help me get acclimated to this new culture, this new country, this new educational system, and I'll have that support and community I need as I'm working towards my degree. That is also a great answer. But the bottom line is you need to be able to show that you've done enough research, you know what you want to do, and that you're coming back home to your home country after you graduate. So here, like I said, ties to your home country is extremely important. Visa officers will not ask you about your ties directly. So everything you answer needs to point to your intent to return home. So you need to give concrete examples. It could be that you're taking over your family business. It could be that you want to start a new business. It could be if you have to take care of your family or if you have kids that you're like leaving behind for education here, you can demonstrate that you're going to be back to take care of your family that's going to be back home. Career opportunities, if you've already been offered a position or a job, mentioning that and saying, yeah, I'm getting my degree, but I'm going to use this degree for this job that I've already been offered in my home country that I will be able to start as soon as I'm done with my degree, or as soon as I get, as soon as I get my degree. So giving concrete examples is the cornerstone or like the biggest thing that I can tell you guys. So before you even go to your interview, or if you've already gone to review and got denied, sit down and really think about these three reasons that we've pointed. Is it family and friends? Is it career opportunities? Or is it continuing education? Why will you go back to your home country? And then you identify your ties before the interview. What worked for me is recording myself. I tell this in every webinar, and this is the advice that I give most students, is just recording my voice on my phone. So I will jot down 5 or 6 questions that I think they might ask. Now, I'm not telling you to memorize your answers because when you memorize your answers, it's very evident that you've memorized your answers and you can tell that you're just like regurgitating their answers. But it's always helpful to set like a 30-second timer to answer a specific question and to stick with that 30-second timer so that you're not oversharing and that you're not talking too much about things that are not relevant to the question. If you have someone to practice with, that's amazing, even better. But if you don't have anybody to practice with like I didn't, I just recorded myself, listened to myself answer. I just kept recording myself until I felt satisfied with the cadence, with the tone, with the amount of information I was giving. Because you want to be concise, to the point, and direct. And you don't want to talk about, if they're asking you a very simple question of why do you want to study in the US? That's exactly what you want to be answering. You know, you shouldn't be adding things about your family tree, it's not necessary. Remember that visa interviews only last 2 to 3 minutes at most. So that means you really need to maximize the amount of time you have, the very little amount of time you have to answer your questions. So here are a few questions that we've prepared for you. So why do you want to study in the US and at this university, at Minnesota State University, Mankato? Really think about what drew you to our university. Really think about the program. Is it the program? Is it the community? Is it the large and diverse international population? Is it your faculty member, research opportunities, internship opportunities? There's so many things you can talk about here. What are your academic goals in the US? What's your program? I came here as a psychology major, and so for me, the most important thing with my research in universities was finding a program or a degree where research was heavily integrated. So being able to do research with faculty members was very important to me. And Minnesota State University Mankato has an excellent research program in psychology, and in general, research is a very big aspect of education here, but that was very important to me. And when I was looking for colleges in the US or universities in the US, I should say. So that was one of my biggest academic goal is really understanding and having that experience of doing research. That is something that I did bring up during my interview as well. What are your professional goals after finishing your program? So again, ties to your home country is very important. What is a motivating factor for you to return to your home country after completing your education? And then how will you pay for your education in the US? Speak about your sponsor. Sometimes if your family isn't able to afford and you have like an uncle or an aunt be your sponsor, you need to be able to explain why your aunt or your uncle is able to sponsor you and the reasoning behind it. Let's say they paid for your secondary education, then you can say, yeah, they helped pay for my secondary education because my mom and dad don't make enough, but my uncle helped me during my secondary education, and now he's also said that he's willing to pay for my undergraduate degree. So you need to have a reasoning, but it needs to be short answers. Um, we, I recently met with a visa officer from Nigeria, and it was a very helpful meeting, I would say, because they were able to give me some questions that they personally ask during their interviews. And this is the list of those answers. I just took note of them so that I could share it with you guys during our webinars. So the questions were that they like to ask students is, why did you pick this school? What are you planning on studying? Did you apply to any other schools? Did you take any entrance exams? Who will be paying for your studies? So make sure you take some time to, you can take a picture of this, but also, like I said, we do also live stream on YouTube. And so you can always go back to our YouTube channel after and rewatch these videos as well. But these are questions that I highly encourage you to practice. And then, yes, what are your plans after you finish school? If you've been in our visa prep sessions, these are a list of documents that I always encourage students to take with them. I always tell students to take a binder because then it's very organized. Everything's in one spot and everything's not just like mishmashed in your bag. That's the worst. You want to be organized. You want to know that you've gotten everything with you and you want to know exactly where everything is. During your interview, you are not allowed to take your bag or your technology, so no phones, no laptops, nothing else like your backpacks. You're not allowed to take any of that in there. And so it's always a good idea to have everything in your folder so you can just take that out of your bag, hand everything else to security before you walk into the interview building or wherever the interviews are going to happen. So this is a list of what you want to take to your interview. Your signed and printed and signed and dated I-20, your passport, your CVIS I-901 receipt after you've paid for it, your visa application fee, photo for visa if you weren't able to upload it on your DS-160, your admissions letter, bank statements and financial sponsor letters, so whatever you submitted to us, you want to take with, academic transcripts, English proficiency, and any documentation you may have of ties to your home country. A lot of times the consular might not even ask to see anything. They might not even ask to see your bank statement or financial sponsor letter. However, we encourage students to take them with you just in case something comes up and they want to see it. If they want to see that you paid your visa application, they couldn't see it on their system, you have the receipt. So we just want to make sure you're prepared more than anything else. Day of your visa interview, like I said in the earlier slide, you will be going through a security checkpoint upon arrival. I encourage you to be early, to get there early so that you have sufficient time to get through the security checkpoint to make sure you're ready, set, and then you have some time to collect yourself before your interview. Alyssa, our director for recruitment, when I'm sure you guys have been with us for our other pre-arrival where she was also present, but she always likes to say, If you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. And if you're on time, you're already late. This is a saying that she uses often. And I also do like to use it because it's very true. In the US, if you're on time, you're already late. So you always want to make sure you're early. Like I said earlier, phones and technology are not allowed. So you're going to have to leave those with you. That's why I'm like, students will ask, like, do I take my laptop? And I'm like, you don't really need it. Just make sure you have everything printed. The baskets that they give you at security is not big enough anyway. And so just take what you need, the bare minimum, the folder with all the documents, the printed documents, and then you're going to leave your phone in there anyway. So again, arrive early. Eat a good meal beforehand. You could potentially be waiting several hours in the embassy with no food, and you could be on your feet the entire time. So you want to make sure you've had a good meal, you're energized, you have enough energy to make it through the day. I cannot focus if I'm hungry. And I don't know if you guys are the same way, which is why I always encourage students to make sure you have enough sustenance in you before you go for interviews, especially big interviews like this. The interview will be at a stand-up visa window, so make sure you're wearing comfortable shoes. So if you're on your feet for hours, at least you're comfortable and you're not aching and hurting. Have your documents organized, and if the consular asks for it, you already know where they are. They're in your folder. You just take it out and give it to them. You look organized and you look like you're prepared and that you take it seriously. Dress for success. Students do ask about what to wear, and I always tell students to dress kind of conservative. I remember just wearing, it was like a plain t-shirt and jeans. And the jeans were not shredded, it wasn't torn, it was just very plain blue jeans. I think I was wearing like a white t-shirt and I was wearing Converse, I think, like very comfortable shoes though. So wear something comfortable, wear something you wouldn't mind standing on, like on your feet for hours. And just make sure you've like combed your hair, you look like, clean. Remember your documents and relax. The visa interviews are typically only 2 to 3 minutes in length, so it's going to go by really fast. I think my interview was a minute and 30 seconds at most. It was very quick. It was very quick. And I think she asked me 3 questions. I gave my answers. I had, again, practiced my answers and I knew exactly what I needed to say. So I gave my answers to the point and that was it. So just think about the fact that it's only 3 minutes. It doesn't make it any less nerve-wracking. It doesn't make it any less scary, but just knowing that it's not like a 30-minute interview always helps, I think. Okay, here's some helpful resources for you to utilize. If you still need extra assistance with preparing for your visa interview, the U.S. Department of State has a official resource for U.S. visa website where they have some tips, advice, all of that good stuff. There's also another website that you can go to called CF Visa Guides. Again, these are not affiliated with us, so we don't make any profit. We're not, but we've just compiled it together because we feel that these can be helpful resources for our students if you have the financial means to do so. But the ZF Visa Guides is like $300 for a comprehensive F-1 visa course that's prepared by a former visa officer. Another helpful resource is Argo Visa. It's free. They have a bunch of playlists on their YouTube channel, and they're very helpful visa tips and tricks that you could look at. Again, that's the one on YouTube is free. If you want to do a one-on-one visa consultation, you can also do that on argovisa.com, but the price range is as mentioned on the screen. And finally, if you're still looking to, practice for your visa prep, but again, you can't pay $300 for it. We do provide free visa prep sessions at Minnesota State University Mankato. You can do up to 3 visa prep sessions per admitted student. And for this, you'd meet with a current international student to prepare you for your visa interview. So you'll be able to kind of sit down with them. It's not one-on-one. There's going to be like maybe up to multiple people in the session. However, it's going to be a current international students, and so they'll be able to share their personal experiences and give you a lot of very helpful advice and practice questions with you. So yes, that's the link for you, link.mnsu.edu/visa prep 2 if you want to schedule some time with our visa prep team. And of course, if you have already scheduled a visa appointment, you know how you need to reschedule your visa. You would have to go to the US Embassy, or you have to search for the US Embassy or consulate that's near you, complete the DS-160 online immigrant application again, and then you pay the $185 visa fee. If you've already gone to the visa interview, you know what this process was like for you. So please remember that it does take approximately 90 minutes to complete, so make sure you're in an area where you have good Wi-Fi, you have all of your documents with you. I always tell students to have your photo ID ready before you start this application. Yep, there you go. Set aside 90 minutes to complete the DS-160. Prepare a photo for your DS-160 before you begin filling out the application. And there is a section in this DS-160 where they might ask for a US point of contact. So for that, students do ask us, like, what do I write down? I don't have anybody in the US. You should write down, do not know, don't put a name there. And then the organization name is going to be Minnesota State University Mankato. Relationship to you, you're going to put down school official, our address, our phone number, and our email are all listed on the screen for you. So you can take a picture of this, or again, you can always go back to this video on our YouTube channel after. With that, our spring 2025 orientation is really creeping up. Very excited to see it's already November. So we'll see you guys in about 2 months. Attendance is mandatory. Orientation attendance is mandatory. It's going to happen between January 6th through to January 10th, 2025. You must arrive in the US on or before January 5th, 2025. So you're rested enough for check-in on January 6th. The first day you can enter the US is December 14th, 2024. If you already have your visa and you're preparing, the first day you can enter the US is December 14th. And we're very excited to meet you. We have a wonderful team of peer mentors that are here to help you navigate the campus your first week. They'll help you get checked in. We'll also be here, me and all of our other full-time staff. Will be here present as well. And if you guys see me, please come up and say hi. I do try to remember the names of the students, but it's kind of hard to remember everyone, but I know that there are some names on here that are very familiar to me. So if you see me, please come say hi. And with that, orientation peer mentors are waiting for you. These are current international students that are attending Minnesota State Mankato. And so if you have any questions, they're always great resources as they're currently going through the US educational system and getting their degree. Alrighty, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for now. And then I'm also going to go to our YouTube just to make sure I don't miss any questions. Oh, Dylan, you did tell me on YouTube that you can hear me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you guys can hear me that well. I'm hopeful that we got that fixed up. If you guys have any questions, again, please leave them in the Q&A tab. That's a lot easier for me to get to questions that way. Oops, I did something on YouTube. That's my bad. Okay, I don't see any other questions on YouTube, which is great. Let me just double check our Q&A tab here. Hi, Joseph. Welcome. Did you have a specific question at all? Please let me know, and then I'll do my best to answer. If not, I can always provide you guys with a resource that you would reach out to get that question answered. If you guys don't have any questions, we do have another session coming up soon, which is, let me double check. I want to make sure that you guys, okay, so we have a placement testing webinar on November 14th, and then we have a registration one coming up, If you are preparing to travel to Minnesota or Mankato, we will also have a webinar coming up soon. We have one final visa prep session in December, and then the final webinar is going to be an orientation overview for you, which I highly recommend attending because then that'll give you a good sense of what to expect during orientation and what you need to prepare. Okay, Maureen has a question. I was asked, what is your occupation? And I said that I'm a student. So what could I say? You can just say that you don't have, you're a student. That's a great answer. That's what I would answer, unless you did some kind of employment in between, like if you took a gap year and you were working somewhere, you could bring that into your answer. But otherwise, the best answer would just be to say, yeah, I'm a student. And then this is what my plan is to go and study because I'm a student. Ayong asked, I don't think I'm saying your name right. I'm so sorry if I'm not, but what if I was asked if I have anyone in the USA that can pick me up? Well, if you have, answer this question honestly. If you do have family in the US, answer truthfully and say, yeah, I have family, especially if you have someone in Minnesota and they're gonna come pick you up at the airport or anything like that. You can definitely say that. But if you don't have anyone in the US or if you don't have any friends, then you can just say, yeah, I don't have anybody that's going to pick me up, but I've done X, Y, and Z to make sure I get to campus safely. Um, because we do have a bus service or a land to air bus service that comes from the airport to Mankato. It's an hour and a half journey, about 2 hours journey from the airport to Mankato. Which again, I encourage you to join our travel to Mankato session. That's going to happen in a couple weeks. We'll go into a lot more detail with that. But if you have someone in the US, answer truthfully. If you don't, then you can just say, yeah, I don't have anyone picking me up, but I have booked a bus service from the airport to my where I live, and that's how I'm going to get there. I hope that answers your question. These are really good questions. Maureen said, why did the interview give me a refusal and yet my documents were well arranged? How could I know why the problem came from? So it's really hard for us to concisely say why a visa officer might have denied you, because again, we don't have access to that information. We don't know what they check for with background information, but really think about the questions they ask, the answers you gave, and write them down and really reflect on it. Sometimes it could just not even be the question and answer that you were giving. It could just be something on your DS-160, something if you have, again, like I was saying earlier, if you have like siblings in the US and they're on H-1B, they might see that as a red flag potentially and be like, oh, the student's siblings are already in the US and they're on H-1B, so this student might also just stay on H-1B and stay in the US. So there's so many things that could come in, even if you know that your documents are well arranged, which makes this a pretty frustrating process, and I completely understand that. But it's always a good idea to reflect on your answers, practice your answers, and just go back if you have significant changes in your application. Dylan, I'm already working here in my country. Can that really work as a strong home tie for me? And does it sound like a significant change in my application? You can definitely certainly bring that up because that is a really good point. But they also might ask, well, if you're already working in the country, why are you going to the US for a degree then? You need to be able to answer that question because they might say, well, you already have a career here. You already are making salary, if you've already been to college before, they might bring that up. So you need to be able to answer that question of why coming to the US is going to benefit you and your career, or be better or make your career better. So you need to be able to answer that question. It's a really good question. Can I still reapply for my embassy interview after denial? If you're within the time frame of the same depending on which country you are, you might not be able to get an interview right away. I know in India, I think they have to wait 60 days before they're able to get a second interview after they've been denied. So please double check with your embassy, your consulate, and see what their procedure and policy is like for scheduling a second appointment, because you might need to wait a certain amount of time before you're able to reschedule an appointment, depending on, again, like I said, where you are. So double check with your consulate. The I-20, somebody asked, how long does I-20 take to expire? So the I-20 is only given to you for a certain term. So if you've gotten an I-20 for spring 2025, you need to be here before spring 2025. If you're not able to get an interview or a visa before orientation, that means you need to defer your application. And so our deferring process, you have to do it on your end, and then you can ask or request for a new I-20 for a different term. So you need to defer your term to a different term. So if you cannot make it here for spring 2025, you can defer it to fall 2025 or spring 2026. Can I get another expedite in the same month of my rejected interview if the first rejected visa I also got through? Again, I would double check with your consulate, your embassy that you went to, and check what their policy and procedures are like, because it can be very different depending on what country, and what continent. So double check that with them and see if you're able to. If you can't find that information on their website, you can reach out to them and ask them that. But again, very good. I wish you the best of luck, Emmanuel. I know it's not easy when things like this happen, but just know that you're doing your best, and just to prepare and practice your answers and reach out to your consulate for more information if you're still confused about the rescheduling a new visa. Really good questions, guys. I'm gonna check YouTube as well really quickly. Okay, I think we're good on that. If you guys don't have any further questions, I do want to let you guys know that again, we have a bunch of other webinars coming up, but to remember that be yourself. This is also something that Alyssa likes to say is be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. I use that a lot. I use a lot of quotes that Alyssa uses because they're really good quotes. So just remember, be yourself, be direct in your answers, be truthful, and make sure you're convincing the visa officer that you will return to your home country. I'll take one last question before I end the webinar today. Joseph asked, since I was denied a visa in early September, I've lost hope. Getting a slot soon for visa application might be impossible. I had to defer to fall 2025 by applying again. Is it all right if I applied again? Joseph, so our application, you do not have to reapply again. All you would have had to do is submit a deferral question. You have a deferral. Let me put that in the chat actually, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Defer application. So this is the process that you would take to defer your application to a different term, Joseph. So just make sure you're following instructions here, these instructions, and then you can ask for a new I-20. And I'm really sorry to hear that you've lost hope. I know it's not easy. I completely understand how frustrating this process can be. But just believe in yourself, be yourself, and I hope that the next time you go, everything works out for you. I wish you the best, and feel free to utilize our visa prep sessions, the free visa prep sessions that I mentioned in this session. Emmanuel, what is the difference between major 1 and major 2 on I-20? Because I have 2 on mine. That means you've mentioned or indicated to us that you want to have 2 different majors. And then we just put the first one that you selected as major 1. All right. Thank you for all of these great questions. I am going to head out because I have another meeting to get to. But again, just know that we will be having upcoming webinars, so please join us for those. If you have any questions, please email us and we'll try our best to get back to you as soon as possible. It's been really nice to have you guys here today. I hope this has been helpful. And like I said before, we do live stream on YouTube so you can watch the recorded session afterwards. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are. And I wish you guys the best in your next visa appointment if you've already rescheduled one or if you are planning to reschedule one. Again, be yourself. I believe in you. You guys got this. And hopefully I'll see you guys in spring or in the fall.